I known Benny all my life. We grew up together. We were practically brothers. That's how close we were. Went to the same schools. Okay, here's one for you. In the 6th grade, Mrs. Wallace, we had to do a report on ancient Egypt. Lucky for me, Benny was my partner. He liked school. I didn't have much use for it. I liked baseball. Benny liked baseball too, but he wasn't very good at it. Okay, he stunk, but he was pretty good in school. Well, you know, he listened in class, did homework. Not me. Anyway, this report on ancient Egypt, Benny came up with some pretty neat stuff. We both got A's. Man, he had, the pyramids, the mummies, pharaohs, all that jazz. A big hit. But for right now, what I want to tell you is this one thing in particular. It's amazing I still remember this. Benny said that the ancient Egyptians believed that when you died, your heart was weighed against an ostrich feather, and that determined whether or not you would have eternal life. Now, for some reason, this really got to me. An ostrich feather. And I said to him, Benny, that can't be right. Everybody's heart weighs more than an ostrich feather. He said it was right. I figured it was one of those religions in which everybody was saved. My contribution to the report, by the way, I went to the zoo and got an ostrich feather. Didn't ask for it, just yanked one out through the bars. Jesus, did that bird jump and squawk, and it was a big feather. But it didn't weigh anything, light as a feather. And when I gave it to him, I said, Benny, you must have got that wrong. It must be the whole ostrich or something. Well, I was young and dumb. Now I'm old and still pretty dumb, but I know that what all that was about. But now I know what all that was about. Now, the way I see it, after a long lifetime, it's a wonder anybody's heart weighs more than that doggone feather. Because life does have a way of taking it out of you, at least with some folks. I'm thinking about that now because Benny's dying. He's not just sick anymore. He's been sick for quite a while, but now it's his time to go. The doctors tell me it could be any day. I visit him every day. He'd do the same for me. He don't look too good, but that's not his fault. He don't weigh enough to dent the sheets. They feed him through those tubes. It comes out through tubes, a lot of tubes. I talk to him. I say, hey, Benny, how you doing today? I know, what a dumb thing to say that is. But there ain't much else to say. And Benny knows what I mean. He can hear me. Sometimes he can't on account of the medication. But he's looking pretty chipper today. Aren't you, Benny? Anything I can do for you? Nah, I know. I just hang around. We used to talk more, play some cards. If Benny wasn't so sick, we'd be at the ballpark today. Sox are in a one-game playoff, chance to win the pennant for the first time since they put webbing in the gloves. I had 2 tickets, but I wouldn't want to go without Benny. I gave my tickets away. Good seats, too. But I'd rather be here, waiting with Benny for that last pitch. Sometimes he'll get another visitor. Benny hasn't got much living kin. What there is spread out, but sometimes one will show up. They usually don't stay too long. Benny doesn't look so good, and they got their own things to look after. That one that come the other day, she went out and told her husband that Benny looked dead to the world. I'll have you looking good in no time here, Benny. Comb your hair a little, there. I'll shave you a little later, okay? Put on a little of that cologne. Keep you looking good for these pretty little nurses. The gals, I mean. Ah, you know what I mean. Benny don't look like much now, but in his day he was quite the man with the ladies. His day may be gone, but he had his day. Didn't you, Benny? Yeah, we had our day. We sure as heck did. Sitting around, you'd be surprised. It kind of takes it out of you. I try to find things to occupy my mind. They got magazines, but I've never been much of a reader. I'm watching out the window here, and there's this big black bird, I think it's a crow, out on the roof, doing the funniest. He's pecking at stones on the roof. They got gravel and tar on the roof here, flat roof, and this bird has been at these stones now all afternoon. I can't figure out why in the world he would want a piece of stone so bad, but here he is pecking away, and you got the 3 of us, Benny there resting, that bird pecking away, and me wondering why. Things are pretty slow, I guess. Then there's a knock and this priest comes in. He says he's Father Curtis, Boy, you talk about your big black birds. I introduce myself. He says he's making his rounds. He's carrying a big black book. He goes over to the bed and says, "Hello, Ben." Benny's name is taped to the wall in big letters by the head of his bed. "How are you doing today?" Father Curtis says. Benny nods his head. "Good, good. Anything I can do for you or get for you? I can see your friend is here with you. While I'm here, I thought maybe you might like to join me in a short prayer. Would you like to do that, Ben?" It's awful good of the minister to stop by, and it's pretty nice of Benny to pray with him. Benny's never been all that much for praying that I know of, but when these men of the cloth come around, they got a number of them here, they usually like to do a little praying. I've never seen this one before. He must be new. I don't think he knows Benny either. Nobody ever called him Ben. They finish praying, and Father Curtis says, "May the peace of the Lord be with you and with your spirit. You rest now, and I'll be back later." And he comes over to me and says it's very good of me to be here spending time with my friend. "Have you known him long?" I tell him all my life. "Oh," he says, "the two of you must be very close." I don't know what he's getting at, but it was then that Benny made this noise. He can't talk because of all the tubes. We went over to him, his eyes were open, and he made that sound again. And Father Curtis says, "I believe he's trying to say something." I ask Benny if he wants me to ring for the nurse. He shakes his head no, and he makes that sound again. I think this is something that must be very important to him, Father Curtis says.